Sal Khan is here. He is the founder of Khan Academy, the online learning tool that has reached and taught millions. Forbes magazine calls it the largest school in the world. Bill Gates calls him a true pioneer. Khan Academy's goal is to provide a free, world-class education for anyone, anywhere. Sal Khan has written a book describing how such a vision might be achieved. It is called The One World Schoolhouse, Education Reimagined.
In 2004, it was my cousin, Nadia. Her and her family had visited up in Boston after my wedding. It just came out of conversation that she had just taken a placement exam after 6th grade. They were tracking her into the slower math track. And her mom didn't go to school in this country, so I don't think she fully appreciated what the implications might be for Nadia later on. And so I asked Nadia, hey, what was the problem? It was unit conversion. And I said, hey, I think you can get this. How about I tutor you when you go back to New Orleans? We'll get on the phone and use the internet, whatever we can do. And then I started working with her younger brothers, and then word got around the family that free tutoring was happening. And so I found myself working with about 10, 15 cousins every day after work on the phone, instant messenger, whatever else. And one friend said, hey, to help yourself scale up, why don't you record some of your lessons as videos and put them up on YouTube? And I immediately thought it was a horrible idea. I said, no, YouTube is for cats playing piano. It's not for serious mathematics.
Unit conversion,
That's
yeah.
right. But I got over the idea that it wasn't my idea, and I gave it a shot. And yeah, long story short, those videos, my cousins, they famously said that they liked me better on YouTube than in person. I think it was in early 2007. Obviously, my cousins liked them, and I kept making more content. I saw the view count, and I saw it growing and growing. And then comments started to come in, and those first comments were just, simple thank yous. And even that was a big deal. I don't know how much time you'll spend on YouTube. Most of the comments are not thank you. They are somewhat.
I can attest to that.
Oh, yes,
yeah.
You probably.
Yeah.
But then the comments got more intense. This is why I was able to pass algebra class. This is why after leaving the military, I'm able to re-engage and go back to college. I remember, in mid-2007, I got this letter from a mother, and she said both of her sons had a learning disability, and this was the only thing that was allowing them to keep pace with their class. And you're like, wow, just putting this stuff out there, and there's people all over the planet that are actually, their lives are being changed in some way. That was the moment that there's something here. And then the viewership just kept growing and growing and growing. And by 2008, 2009, it overtook my life.
And
absolutely. If you go back 400 years ago and you saw the few people who were getting an education 400 years ago, it was pretty much private tutor.
Right.
And private tutor was self-paced. Hey, you master a concept, now let me shepherd you.
And master's crucial.
Mastery is crucial. If you don't master pre-algebra, it's kind of nuts to expect you to understand algebra but we do. Right now, you can barely pass algebra, and they're going to stick you in algebra 2, or they're going to stick you in. And what happened is about 200 years, and I go into the history a bit in the book. About a little over 200 years ago, the Prussians, now part of, or somewhat part of Germany, were the first to say, well, we want a large labor force, and this is the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. Let's have universal public education. It's actually a pretty profound thing that they did. But then say, how do we do it in an economical way? And they said, well, maybe we batch students together. We see how some of these factories are starting to get built. How do they do things at scale? We batch students together, moving them a line at a set pace. We try to pour knowledge into their heads. Some kids it'll stick, some it won't. At some point, we start we start sorting the oranges. These kids are going to be juiced, and these kids are going to go to Whole Foods. I don't know if that's it. But and there was an element of even in the old Prussian model of some degree of indoctrination. And then in the mid-1800s, the U.S. Famously said, well, we want to have universal public education. Yeah. It's no coincidence.
So we based it on the Prussian model.
We based it on the Prussian model, the Japanese too. It's no coincidence. These are the industrial superpowers that emerged because they had a middle class that was educated. But they fundamentally didn't rethink the model. A lot of people, I talk about it in the book, it was actually a discovery to me when I was doing some of the research. I was like, why do they always teach physics in the 12th grade? Why do they teach chemistry in the 11th grade? Why do they have, where did this come from? And it came from literally a group of 10 men about 120 years ago, before the internet or DNA or anything, that said people should learn geometry in the 10th grade. People should learn, they should have 3 years of English. They should have, and it was just, and it hasn't changed. It's pretty much frozen there. And so what we're saying is a lot of the ideas aren't new. Let's master a concept. Let's personalize the instruction to the student. This is what would have been the gold standard 300 years ago. And even 50 years ago, if you said, what's the best? Well, a personalized instruction. Now, could you do that for every student? No, it's very expensive. It would cost you, you'd have to hire a teacher for every student. And what's interesting about technology is now we can go through the same thought experiment and say, well, maybe we can do personalized instruction for every student if we rethink the role of the teacher, if we move them up the value chain. Instead of them just being a lecturer, we let them see data on where every student is. Every student is going at their own pace, mastering concepts. We leverage the fact that the students can teach each other. This is where kind of the one-room schoolhouse comes in. And that's another kind of meta-level skill that I think is lost today. Yeah, it's nice to be able to factor a polynomial, but the ability to take leadership and the ability to actually manage your peers. If you're a 16-year-old, you're now leading some 12-year-olds. You're teaching them things. Can we start to leverage in that way? And so everything we're writing here is like, yeah, I think we can. And we're not only can we, but we're doing it. We're seeing it. And you know, Khan Academy is a part of it, but we're able to work with schools today that are actually experimenting here.
But you all
Yeah, you know, I mean, right now, FaceTime and seat time, whatever you want to call it, it's there. People sit, I mean, at the university level, to the point that your units are called, they're literally seat time units. Right. 3 credit hours, 6 credit hours. It's how many hours you sat in a chair. And what we're saying is, look, one, it should go to a competency model, where it's not how long you sat in the chair, but did you learn the material at a level of mastery, and whether it took you 5 days to do it or 5 years to do it, that's irrelevant. You got to that level. The other is, when you get human beings together in a room, you know, a lot of people say, hey, well, you know, this video lecture stuff, you know, I enjoy it, but I loved my college lectures where I could ask a question. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly the point. Instead of questions being 5% of the time, it should be 100% of the time. There should be none of the students just sitting passive. And, you know, what I point, whether you have 10 students in the room, 20 students in the room, or 2,000 students in the room, if you're having a passive lecture, it doesn't matter. There's no interactivity. And we've all sat in a college lecture, or even in high school, and we're all in the room together, but we're not able to talk to each other. It's actually incredibly dehumanizing that you're getting no interactivity. And so what we're saying is a lot of your exposure to the concepts, and once again, humanities have been doing this for a long time. Go read the chapter, and we're going to discuss it when we come to class. We're going to have an interactive thing.
Let me show you a little bit of a montage. So the hypotenuse is now going to be 5. This animal's fossils are only found in this area of South America, a nice clean band here, and this part of Africa. We could integrate over the surface, and the notation usually is a capital sigma. National Assembly, they create the Committee of Public Safety, which sounds like a very nice committee. Notice this is an aldehyde, and it's an alcohol. Start differentiating into effector and memory cells. A galaxy. Hey, there's another galaxy. Oh, look, there's another galaxy. And for dollars is their 30 million plus the $20 million from the American manufacturer. If this does not blow your mind, then you have no emotion.